Yo, what is going on? Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 81. We got a good one planned for you today, folks. It's mock season, mock draft, mock everything else. I hit the wrong button on the music. Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown. I'm your host, Johnny Soap, and welcome. Always beside me is Mr. Robert Munich. How are we doing today, Robert?
We're doing good, and we're in for quite the episode today. It's mock season. I know how much everybody loves mock trades, mock drafts. So, yeah, we're going all mock today on the Red Mile Rundown.
Much like it's mock 100,000 feet of rain outside this weekend as well. How do you enjoy your rainy weekend up in Calgary?
Well, I live pretty close to the Elbow River, so not enjoying it. Not enjoying seeing the river get higher and higher. But, yeah, it's been terrible. It's June 1st, and you basically have to wear a winter jacket outside today. It's windy and 6 degrees, pouring rain is bullshit, but perfect day for a podcast.
Hey, you got oceanfront property now, though, Robert. So look at the bright side.
Yeah, the Elbow River and the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, it's basically the exact same thing.
It is June 1st, as Robert mentioned. The Stanley Cup Finals get underway today, the day of us recording this podcast. So that's exciting. And that means we are 25 days away from the draft. It feels like forever away still for us to get to that point. But hey, that was what makes the month of June a lot of fun is the mocking. So let's mock trade this bad boy up. Let's mock draft this bad boy up, Robert. Let us start with the trade scenarios. There's a lot of chatter around the Flames at 6 and who they're going to pick. But there's also a lot of chatter as can they move up from 6 and maybe jump into that 2 hole, that 4 hole? Who's willing to move down? How much will it take for someone to move up or move down? What do you do with the Vegas pick? We have all those second rounders as well, Robert, to work with. Let's start off with a mock trade. Let's have your first mock trade, something that we could potentially see or would like to see the Flames undertake. And let's just warn the listeners, we're moving up in the first round here on some of these trades. It's going to take a lot, so just breathe and just go with the flow here because it's going to take a lot to move up from 6 for sure. Where are you starting here, Robert, with your first mock trade?
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple here, and one of them is moving from 6 to first overall or second overall.
Ooh.
And then the other one's keeping pick 6, but using other assets to move back into the top 10. So I guess we'll start with moving into the top 2 here. So I'm looking at the San Jose's Sharks second overall pick here. And if you're the Flames, I think you move up and you target Ivar Stenberg. And, you know, if you missed last week's episode, we talked a lot about how the Flames should pretty much do everything in their power to add star caliber players, guys who it's impossible to add them basically outside the draft. So targeting pick 2, and Ivar Stenberg, I think, makes a lot of sense for the Calgary Flames. And I think it makes a lot of sense for San Jose to move back to 6 to take one of those defensemen. So I got a pretty big trade package here. So going to San Jose would be the Flames' 6th overall pick, Utah and Ottawa's second-round picks this year, and defenseman Zach Whitecloud. And then to Calgary is the 2nd overall pick. And the reason why I put that together is because, you know, San Jose, this is just to move back 4 spots, and San Jose desperately needs to take a defenseman here. So, you know, all they do is they move back 4 spots. They can take probably a Carson Karls or a Keaton Verhoff at that spot, so they get their defenseman. They get an additional 2 second-round picks on top of that they can either use to select players, or they could maybe package those second-round picks to acquire an NHL defenseman. And then on top of that, you get Zach Whitecloud, who is a legit, as we saw at the end of the season here in Calgary, legit top 4 defenseman. He's on a great contract, and he proved that he's quite literally the perfect player to have during a rebuild. He's a fantastic leader, and I think he'd make a big difference in that San Jose locker room. So it's a lot to move, but at the same time, the Flames are then guaranteed to get a guy like Ivar Stenberg, who, you know, I believe is, you know, a true difference maker that you can add to your organization. A guy who's going to be probably around a point per game player on most years. Looks like he's a really smart 2-way player. So like I mentioned, like it's so hard to find those difference makers. And if the Flames can get one for a few draft picks along with a defenseman who only has 2 years left on his contract, I think that's something they should seriously look at. So that's my first mock trade. I'll just go over it one more time. 2 San Jose, 6 overall, Utah and Ottawa's second round picks this year, and Zach Whitecloud, and then Calgary moves up to number 2 to take Ivar Stenberg. So that's my first one.
I like that too because we got to remember San Jose has needs on that roster, right? After the 26-27 season, they only have three guys, assigned beyond that season that are NHL guys. So it's imperative that they find some defensemen as well. So that trade would work on that level as well, getting Zach Whitecloud in there with a couple of seasons left on his contract. It is a lot to pay, but when you break it down there, Robert, it's actually not a bad trade to make at all. It's interesting that San Jose keeps coming up as the trade team for everyone. Hey, San Jose is going to move down. They need a defenseman. They want a defenseman. To get Ivar Stenberg out of that number 2 hole and to get San Jose to move off it, you're going to have to pay a lot. And so I don't think that's an overpay at all for what you're having to give up to get the guy. And the value of those picks, you have to kind of think, are the players we're getting in that second round going to be better value than Ivar Stenberg? So from the Flames' point of view, you are paying a lot, but I think you're getting the value for those picks. I went with 2 trades as well, Robert, but neither of mine involved the 6th pick. I kind of thought a little bit outside the box. Everyone's trying to mock the Flames moving up from 6 and moving up to pick an Ivar Stenberg, and I get why people are doing that. Those type of trades, those are fun to do. I went a different route. I took this from Dave off of Twitter, and I kind of tweaked it a little bit. You know this one, Robert. I sent it to you on text. I'm aiming at that Jets number 8 overall pick. So I'm trying to trade it back up into the top 8 to get a chance at a guy I might have missed at 6. So I'm assuming the Flames drafted one of those defensemen at 6, and then they have their eyes on either Vigo Bork or Lawrence around that 8th pick. So I'm aiming for that 8th pick. So I'm sending Morgan Frost, a second-line center that they're looking for, the Vegas pick 51 in the second round there, and then the Colorado pick that they have, first round Colorado pick they have in 28 to the Jets to get that number 8 pick. Again, that's 2 firsts, a second, and a roster player to the Jets. The Jets are looking for middle 6 help. That's been reported widely on social media by their beat reporters. I think Morgan Frost, who is looking for a contract, could fit in there behind a Mark Scheifele and give them what they're looking for there. I think you're paying the price with those draft picks to move up there. And then you have your chance of picking Lawrence or Bjork or whoever else you might be targeting there in the top 10, but a chance for the Flames to get quality rather than quantity out of this draft. The big thing that I've been talking about for a few drafts now, and I think this trade is a good one to get that done there, Robert. So that's my first trade there. So once more time, trying to require the Jets 8th pick overall, so the 8th pick overall from the Jets, Morgan Frost, the Vegas pick 51, and the Colorado first that's coming in 2028.
And the thing I like about that is I think Vegas could use some of those picks that you trade them. Sorry, Winnipeg, my apologies. Winnipeg could use some of those picks that you traded them to add to their roster again. You bring in Morgan Frost as a 2C. I think they need another forward, like another true impact top 6 forward there. So they could use the Colorado pick, the Vegas pick in one of the seconds there to maybe add, a difference-making top 6 forward. So, they'd bring in Morgan Frost and another player on top of that, potentially. Or they could select and add to their their weak prospect pool. So I think that deal makes a lot of sense.
I just like it, targeting 2 of those guys, right? You're going to miss out on someone at 6, so get back up in there and get someone at 8.
Yeah, and if that means that the Flames end up getting Carls at 6 and Bjork at 8 or Lawrence at 8, I think that's a home run for the Flames, 100%. Mm-hmm. I have my second trade. I have a similar one in the sense that the Flames keep 6 overall, but they make another deal to move back into the top 10. And I'm looking at the Florida Panthers at pick 9. And, I pick Florida because they don't need to make this draft pick. They really don't need the 9th overall pick. They're in win now mode for the next, 3 to 5 years here. So if I'm the Panthers, I'm looking to move this pick 100% to either add more draft picks that they can use at the trade deadline to bring in a player, or I'm looking to bring in roster players at the same time. So with all that being said, the trade that I've come up with for Florida is the Flames trade Vegas's 2027 first round pick, not their 26, but their 27 first round pick, Utah's second round pick, Colorado's 2027 second round pick, and Devin Cooley. Because and the reason I'm using 2027 draft picks is because that way the Panthers can use those picks at the trade deadline to go out and add another difference maker to their roster.
Mm-hmm.
So they get the 2 picks in 2027. They get a second round pick in 2026. And hey, maybe they could use that as well to bring in another player. And we have to remember that Sergei Bobrovsky is an unrestricted free agent, and he hasn't signed yet. And the Florida Panthers don't have a lot of cap space. So throwing Devin Cooley into the deal, a guy who's signed for another 2 years at below $2 million a year, who's coming off a fantastic year where he's literally one of the best goalies in the league, and he's coming off a fantastic world championship too. You know, he could easily become a 1A, 1B kind of goalie in Florida. And he's dirt cheap, so they don't really have to worry about salary cap implications with him. And then the Flames, you know, from their perspective, they end up getting the 9th overall pick. And, you know, that can allow them to take Vigo Bjork, a Tynan Lawrence, a Daxon Rudolph, Wyatt Cullen, Albert Smits. There's a lot of really good players who are likely to be available at that 9th pick. So, you know, the Flames, you know, yes, they move out a lot of draft capital and they move out a promising goaltender and a great guy and a fan favorite, but they end up picking 9th and they add another potentially core member of the team for the next 12 to 15 years to the organization, which is the most important thing right now for the team. So yeah, I'll run it back one more time to Florida. You got Vegas's 2027 first round pick, Colorado's 2027 second round pick, Utah's 2026 second round pick, and Devin Cooley, and the Flames get the 9th overall pick.
To further that goalie sign, they have one goaltender signed for next year, and it's Tyler Mazulak.
That's not ideal.
So they're looking, because Tarasov's also a UFA, so they're looking for a goaltender, so that fits their needs. I like your reasoning for the 27 picks being included in there. Vegas does the same thing as well as Florida's trying to do here, and that is use draft picks and futures to do the now thing, and that's where Florida is with this. So using those 27s to bring in a guy that they could use would be beneficial to them, but depending on who gets injured in that Florida roster and who has to sit out most of the year like they did this year. And I think Florida has more holes on this roster than we think. When people think of the Panthers, they're thinking, okay, the Barkovs and the Reinhardts and those guys at the top end. They're not thinking the back end. Like, their defensive group is not this put together group anymore that we saw win some Stanley Cups here. They've got some free agents coming through there. I'm just pulling it up here so I don't talk out of my butt. They've got some guys they got to fill some holes with, right? As well. So can you upgrade on Dmitry Kulikov and Vigas Beliskins on the back end? Some guys that are coming up as free agents at the end of next season. So it's a smart trade, I think, for Florida to make, because it maximizes the number 9 overall pick. And, of course, it satisfies the Flames because they have a chance of getting a second guy, much like my trade where they missed out on a guy at number 6. They can swing back around and pick up those guys. It's a smart trade, Robert. Good thinking and good thought behind it from you.
And I'll just add to like the Cooley conversation, because I mean, like I said, he's a fan favorite. He's coming off a great year. Yep. If I'm the Flames, I would, if it means moving up to get another pick in the top 10, I would absolutely throw Cooley into a trade conversation, because I think his value, it might be at an all-time high. Like, who knows if he's going to be able to recreate what he did this past season. He's only signed for another 2 years, and I can almost guarantee that Cooley is going to pull a Dan Vladar. I believe that, you know, if he ends up, you know, staying at this pace that he played at last year, or, you know, takes a little bit of a step back, but proves he's in that kind of Dan Vladar tier of goaltending, he's not going to want to stay in Calgary. You know, you have Dustin Wolf as your future number 1. So I could totally see a world where he says, I'm going to pull a Dan Vladar and I'm going to look elsewhere and I'm going to try to become a starter somewhere. So if you're the Flames, like, why not take advantage of his value right now? And then the other thing too is that the Flames goaltending department has proved that they can find guys. Like this is a very, like, Jordan Sigalet is very skilled at finding goaltenders kind of from obscurity almost. I mean, you take a look at some of the drafts, particularly with Dustin Wolf, they got a couple other Russian guys who seem to be high-end prospects. They found David Rittich out of nowhere. They found Dan Vladar for a third-round pick. They found Devin Cooley off the scrap heap in free agency. This goaltending departments prove that they can find, really good NHL goalies. So that's another reason why I would be comfortable with them, potentially moving out Cooley. And the only way I'd have Cooley in trade conversations, it wouldn't just be like, hey, we're trading Cooley for a second or a third. It would be including him in a package to move into, we'll call it the top 10 or top 15 of the draft. If you think that there's a potential franchise altering player, future core member of your group for the next 10 to 12 years, then I'd be willing to have the Cooley conversation, but definitely wouldn't just trade him for like a second or something like that at this point. So I think the conversation around Cooley is really interesting. And, when it comes to asset management, cashing in on him this summer, if it means helping you get into the top 10 or top 15 of the draft, I think it makes a lot of sense.
You listen to as well to the Flames goaltending department, and they really targeted Kirill Zarubin for a reason. They really think he's of the same ilk of as Ilya Sorokin, Shesterkin type of goaltender. They're high on this guy. They targeted him in the draft. They took him. They brought him over now for a reason. So I think the future for Kirill Zarubin is there for him as well. So if you're looking at guys like that behind Dustin Wolf that are coming, and you have faith that can happen, then that also makes that conversation a little easier to palate with moving Devin Cooley. He's been a good soldier. He's not the future of the Flames as much as people are trying to make a goalie debate this past season with Cooley and with Dustin Wolf. I don't think there is much of a debate. Devin Cooley's a very good backup in this league, and in the right spot, maybe he is a starter like Dan Vladar found in Philadelphia. And if that opportunity's out there for Devin Cooley, why wouldn't he chase it? And be all the power to him for doing so, maximizing his value and what he actually is. And for the Flames, if that's your plan to bring along a Zarubin or even a Sergeyev, and those guys are going to be your backup goaltenders to Dustin Wolf, then you have the Devin Cooley is a luxury at the moment, and you use luxuries to better your roster. I like that trade. Well thought out from you, Robert. And I don't think that Devin Cooley conversation is going to go away anytime soon here.
Yeah, and I know there's going to be a lot of fans out there that are not going to be happy with the idea of moving Cooley because he's just such an amazing personality. He's a good goalie. He's instantly became a fan favorite this past year, and I get all that. But at the same time, like we talked about last week, you got to put emotion aside when you're making some of these decisions. And if it means that you're going to forego 2 more years of Devin Cooley as your backup goalie, and if it helps get a trade package over the top to move higher in the draft, then I think it's something you have to seriously consider doing.
One thing I've really learned in talking trades and throughout learning about hockey and how the business works is the value that you're getting back worth the value you're trading out for these players? So that player in Devin Cooley, really good in the room. Everyone likes him. He battles hard for you. But if you're trading up into that top 10, if you're trading up into that top 10 to get yourself another player, let's just use Tynan Lawrence. You really believe in a Tynan Lawrence, and you're getting him at number 9. He comes in here, and he becomes your number 1C down the road for this franchise and propelling you to whatever success you might have in the playoffs. You look back on it, was trading a backup goaltender worth of a number 1 center? I think everyone would say yes. Just sometimes you got to take the emotion out of it, as much as it's tough to see people go. You go back to the Jerome McGinley trade when they traded Joe Nundeck for Jerome McGinley. Many people around my age were gutted that Joe Nundeck was traded, but you look back on the trade and you're like, well, that trade actually was really nice for the Flames because we got to see Jerome McGinley's career, right? So you gotta give to get. My second trade package is to move up back into the first round. So I went on the basis that I've used my first pick, number 6. I've traded back up into the top 10. And now I'm trying to trade back into the first round just to kind of get a third first-round pick because I really like a guy. And I targeted 2 guys in here, a Jack Hextall or a Maddox Dignez. I can't say his last name. He plays in the queue, but he's a centerman. He's got a lot of high skill. Dignes, something like that.
I think it's Desnoyers.
That might be, I don't know how you say it. I really don't. And I apologize to Maddox. So, so that's kind of my thing. I'm trying to target another center.
Dejanay. Sorry, it's Dejanay.
Dejanay. There you go.
Robert
with his Robert the French expert. So those type of players in that bottom part of the first round, much like with Matt Begrid type of area. So I have packaged Blake Coleman, pick 35 and pick 68, which is the beginning of the third round, to Montreal for pick 28. Montreal gets themselves a player to replace the Gallaghers of those guys, a playoff veteran, and a guy that might be able to help them get over the edge in an Eastern Conference final. Something that I thought that they really lacked in that series versus Carolina was a little bit of veteran leadership in the middle six, help push propel those young kids. So Blake Coleman, I think, satisfies that for them. They get a couple of picks just to move down a little bit. They're not in asset collection mode in Montreal, so these picks would help them acquire other players, or maybe they pick someone at 35 that they really like, and it allows the Flames to move up about 9 spots here to be able to select a Jack or a Maddox and allow them to put a little bit more into their cupboards. I really like Jack Hextall and the scouting report that I've read from him about how good he is on the power play, how he can win faceoffs, how he can do a lot of multiple different ways. And I think that he's a type of player the Flames should be targeting at the end of that first round, because I love skill and I love players that provide high-end stuff, and that's what Jack Hextall does. Maddox is very much similar in the queue for his organization. So that's my trade. Trading Blake Coleman, pick 35, pick 68 to Montreal to get pick 28 and be able to take another center in this draft.
I like it. And I mean, even at that part of the draft too, if Liam Ruck is still available, then all of a sudden you set yourself up with pick 28 and pick, 30 or 31, and you might be able to secure the Ruck twins potentially in a deal like that as well. Mm-hmm.
I purposely stayed away from the Rucks because that's a lot of moving parts, and it's hard to do a one trade to get two guys type of trade like that. But absolutely, for sure, I agree with you there, Robert.
I wonder, what about the idea of throwing like a Brendan Gallagher in that deal if you're Calgary? Taking on that salary from Montreal. Could Montreal maybe throw in another asset for you to take Gallagher? And then, you have Gallagher as a leader for this year, and then you could maybe trade him at the deadline and eat some money. Like maybe that could be something you add to the deal too with Montreal.
I'm just going to look it up here. I think Gallagher might be a free agent because he was talking in his presser today about
I looked this morning. He's got 1 year left.
1 year left. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing to do, because you bring and get. We talked about Ryan Lomberg and what he is in the room, and we talk about what is Adam Klapka. Well, Brendan Gallagher is that type of player, right? The type of player that comes in here and can show the younger kids how to be a bottom six forward, how to be a professional. He's great in the room in Montreal. People love him out there. And he's been through this type of thing before. He went through that Montreal rebuild with him, so he knows what to expect. He knows what to bring to the table. Yes, his boots are slow now, and he's not as effective as he was about 6-7 years ago. But at the same time, you're not looking for a high-end guy to come in here and take over the team in that type of a trade. You're looking for a veteran leader. So I like that from you, Rob. That's a good addition to that trade.
So I'll just do one more quickly. So this is to move up to first overall.
I love these. So, these are awesome.
And, of course, this likely is not going to happen. But, I mean, there's discussion out there that the Leafs are open to the idea of moving the first overall pick. And I think it would cost a ton, but it might be
for Mitch Marner.
Not for Mitch Marner, unfortunately.
Oh,
yeah, he is in Vegas, which is absolutely hilarious seeing him in the Stanley Cup Finals.
People
need to calm down about this whole Marner discussion. Like, there's people dunking on Toronto, and for no reason, because Marner was terrible in Toronto in the playoffs, especially in games 5, 6, and 7. You're allowed to praise Marner for being good with Vegas right now, and you're also allowed to critique his time in Toronto in the playoffs. Like the whole Marner discussion's pissing me off.
My favorite part of that discussion was Ellie Friedman on his podcast telling everyone just to let it go, like move on already, would you?
Yeah, and that's what Kelly McCrimmon said the other day. He's like, this feels like it's like a boyfriend and girlfriend broke up, and the boyfriend is just not over her. Get over her, and which is a pretty funny thing to say. So here's my trade package for first overall. So Toronto gets Calgary's 6th overall pick this year, Vegas's 2027 first round pick, the Rangers and Senators 2026 second round picks this year, and Zach Whitecloud. And it's basically for all the reasons that I'd mentioned for the Florida and San Jose trades I just had. The same sort of principles apply for this Toronto one, because Toronto, they only move back 5 spots, so they're still able to draft a really high end player and a defenseman, which they desperately need in their organization. They get the 2 second round picks in 2026, and once again they could add to their prospect system, which really lacks quality and quantity. They need all the help they can get in their prospect system. You got Vegas's 2027 first round pick that you could use at the trade deadline to add a piece, because we all know that the Maple Leafs, they want to remain competitive and they want to keep a guy like Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
And on top of that, then you add in Whitecloud, and similar to San Jose, Toronto, they desperately want to revamp their decor. And I know they have Jake McCabe there, but I think they could use a guy like Zach Whitecloud, just like a really steady top 4 defenseman. He's dirt cheap he's got 2 years remaining on his contract. The contract is fantastic. So you get all that just to move back 5 spots, and Calgary moves to first overall, and then they can take Gavin McKenna, who looks like he could be, potentially a kind of like a Patrick Kane or Nikita Kucherov type of player. I don't know if he'll have quite the same level of production there, but a guy you immediately add to your organization who instantly becomes your best prospect, instantly, becomes, part of your core, and potentially a game-changing piece that this organization desperately needs. So, 2 Toronto, 6 overall, Vegas's 2027 first, New York and Ottawa's 2026 second round picks, and Zach Whitecloud for the first overall pick. Now, and I might even be coming up short in terms of, what the Flames package look like. They might need to add even more to that to move up to first overall, just because we don't see those trades ever. So, it's definitely an interesting discussion.
John Chayka is the type of guy who wants to make a splash and put his mark on the Maple Leafs. So he might be just dumb enough to pull off a trade like this and not do the smart thing of just taking McKenna to pair with Austin Matthews and satisfying 2 birds with 1 stone. So it's going to take a big package. That might be the minimum, Robert, to get first overall, because you're talking the number 1 pick. You're talking first overall and the cachet that comes with that. But if the Flames can wiggle McKenna out of this trade, out of this draft, I'm willing to move off 5, 6, 7 assets like this to get that type of player. Because we talked last week about the pod about how it might be time to stop going from quantity and start getting quality in the drafts, in these drafts, because we have so many picks. You have 18 picks in the first 3 rounds in the next 3 drafts. Like, that's a lot of capita. Start using that to be aggressive and to start putting in quality into your prospect pool, and doing that type of trade. It's aggressive, it's bold, and it's exactly what you want to do. It's adding quality to your draft pool. I'm on board for it. I wouldn't care about that price, to be honest, but that's me personally. And then all of these trades, I think for the most part, we've done that exact same thing, Robert. We've taken the quantity the Flames have had here, and we've turned a little bit of it into quality, coming away with 2, 3 guys who will actually impact your prospect pool and elevate your prospect pool to the next level. So I like these trades. I'll take McKenna all day. I'll give all of my first round picks for the next 2 years for Gavin McKenna. I'm that high on this guy. And I think that if he gets to be 90% or 80% of a Patrick Kane, I think you'd take that all day long, especially if you just traded a few pieces away for him. That's an interesting one, Robert. I don't have a first overall trade. I didn't think of one.
Well, I'm right there with you in the sense that I would be willing to add more to that to make this deal happen. I mean, based off our discussion last week, I'm at the point now where I view the NHL draft for the Flames over the next 3 years as the opportunity to add as many star level difference making players as humanly possible. And if it means sacrificing all your second round picks this year, all your third round picks this year, a guy like Zach Whitecloud, who, I know the fans love and was a fantastic member of this team this year. But once again, he's only got 2 years remaining on his contract. What does his future look like? If it means adding in a Devin Cooley, if it means Morgan Frost, Blake Coleman, there's almost nobody on this roster that is untouchable for me, outside of like the young core guys. Throw Connor Zary in that mix, Joel Farabee, Oli Mata, do everything in your frickin' power to find difference making players. And yeah, like I said, even if it means overpaying, then overpay. Like this, the only way the Flames can add star players is essentially through the draft. Like they have to do everything in their power to find those star level players, add to their core, and just give them the best chance humanly possible to become a Stanley Cup contender one day. And I don't know if you can do that picking 6th to 10th overall every year. I think you really need to be aggressive and move up and find those players. And another thing too is, I think they're going to be able to replenish their draft picks here over the next couple of years. I mean, just take a look at their contract situation here, and you got guys like Farabee, Frost, Cooley, Coleman, White Cloud, Mata. Like there's 6 right there, that you could trade, if they're not in picks to move up. Like if you just trade them individually over the next couple of years, you can replenish a lot of these draft picks that you've traded to move up to get to 1st or 2nd overall too. So I really hope Craig Conroy is ultra aggressive and does everything he can to find, multiple difference makers in this draft. Like if they somehow walked away with, call it 2 picks in the top 10, like we're getting crazy here, but if it's 6th and 9th overall, or 6th and 8th overall, or 1st and 9th overall, or something like that, and you walk away with, Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg, and then a Bjork or Carroll's, and then, pick 8 or 9, you get a Rudolph or a Wyatt Cullen. Like all of a sudden, like I think those are like home run decisions that you make. So yeah, I'm all for the Flames just going all out to do everything they can to move up.
And then my message for those that are saying overpay, it's okay. Well, go look at the percentage of second rounders that, or even the late first rounders that make the NHL and have an impact in NHL career. You look at these first rounders the Flames have gotten, they're from Vegas and Colorado. Those are going to be late 20s, even 30s overall in your draft cabinet. You look at the second round draft picks, again, it's Colorado and Vegas. So they're almost third rounders at that point, being so late in the second round. So when you're looking at what you can potentially use these assets to trade up and get, I think the value of the players you get back are going to be greater than a chance at picking someone at 30th overall. What happens if Colorado wins the Cup next year? Well, that pick is going to go even further back. So you look at the assets you have here and the draft capital you have here, and being aggressive to go up and get yourself an Ivar Stenberg if you can pull off that type of trade, or back up into the first round so you can get yourself a Tynan Lawrence, those players here that can maybe have a better impact. You go look at the Flames when they've had multiple first rounders. Go look at the Morgan Klimchuk or the Amelia Poiriers that they drafted at the end of the first round or beginning of the second round with guys like Patrick Sela. Those guys don't move the needle, but you're moving up into that top 10 for an opportunity to find someone, or have a better opportunity to find someone who does move the needle. So yes, on paper, you're looking at, let's just use your first overall trade there, Robert. You're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. You're looking at 5 pieces for 1, 5 high-end pieces for 1. But what value do those pieces have versus what you're getting back? So I think I'm right there with you, Robert. For me, their only untouchables on this roster should be Dustin Wolf and maybe Zane Parekh. For me, if I get the right deal, pretty much everyone's available. And all of my draft picks should be available to be moved in a trade if you're going to move up and get something for value for these guys. Can you improve is what this draft is all about for me, and next year's draft is all about. Can you improve what you have both on this roster and in your draft cupboards? It's a lot of players. You're talking 4,900 contracts, 21 yet to be signed that have been picked by the Flames, plus the 11 draft picks this season, and what are we at to 9 next year? That's a lot of players, a lot of bodies, a lot of draft time for some quality. And this is how you do it. You got to be aggressive at this draft. And I will go to the draft saying that be aggressive, time for quality over quantity, in my opinion.
And just to add to that, once again, if you're on the side where you think this is too much, and which is totally fair, it's a lot to be giving up in a lot of these trades, but just go back and look at the Flames draft history and look at picks, we'll call it 25 all the way to 200, whatever, in the 7th round. The Flames, they rarely hit on those picks. Yes, you have your odd Rasmus Anderson in the 2nd that works out. You get your Dustin Wolf, you get your Andrew Mangiapane in the 6th every now and then. But the overwhelming majority of picks the Flames make from basically 25 to 220, call it, are swings and misses. So if you can include a whole bunch of those to move up to guarantee yourself somebody like Gavin McKenna, a guy that could be a potential franchise-altering player who could play in your market for, the next 10 to 15 years, you do that all day long. And I know the Flames, they've had a couple good drafts recently here. I still don't think that's good enough reason to be holding on to a lot of these picks. And, we've established that the Flames, they have like a decent prospect group. I mean, they're ranked top 5, top 3 by a lot of different draft experts, but, they're missing the high quality guys.
Yeah.
And you have to add those high quality guys. Like, I just can't enforce that point enough. And just like you did there. So yeah, I am all for just going all in on the next few drafts here.
If the Flames pull off a trade for Gavin McKenna, that jersey will be ordered so quickly off of my phone because I'd be so damn excited, man. Robert got the blood flowing for the draft here, and getting Gavin McKenna would be just awesome. A lot of people want Ivor Stenberg too. Like, if they got that first over pick and they picked either of those two guys, I think this fan base would start partying in the streets like it was 2004 again.
100%. And from a Flames perspective too, I mean, you need to start selling out this building, and you need to start selling season tickets into Scotia Place. And what's going to incentivize people to want to go out and watch your team's product? Is it a guy like Gavin McKenna, or is it you taking flyers on 6 to 8 guys, picks 27 through 90 in the first end of the first round all the way to the end of the 3rd round? What's going to excite the fans? The star player or the lottery tickets, like the Andrew Bashas of the world and Jacob Battaglias, and Yan Kuznetsovs, like all these guys who they've taken in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. That's not getting people excited to go to the Dome and go to Scotia Place. You need star players. You need guys who are going to get people out of their seats and play entertaining hockey. And if it means trading 5 to, I'll even call it 8 assets to move up to 1st overall, you do it all day long. 100%.
I don't think anyone would sit here and be excited that the Flames used all 2nd round draft, all 4 2nd-round draft picks to draft some guys to, hey, we have guys now in our system. We have tons of guys. Let's get the quality in there. So I'm with you there, Robert. That's well put by you. Let's mock trade. Let's mock draft now, Robert. We're gonna assume there's no trades in our top 10. We're just gonna pick it here. We're gonna just kind of mock who we think is gonna be there for the Flames at 6, and who else might be there in that 7, 8, 9 hole that both Robert and I traded back up into to try to find a second guy. So this is kind of a cool exercise. A lot of people are doing mock drafts. I've seen them go a lot of different ways. And so Robert and I will just talk about each of these picks real quickly and who we think might go there. And we're going to assume that San Jose stays at the 2 hole for this conversation of who they might be looking at as well. Robert, if you're Toronto at pick 1, is it McKenna or is it Stenberg, or where are you headed with that one? It's got to be McKenna, right?
100% it is. So yeah, I'll do the odd number picks. You'll do the even number picks.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. So for Toronto, 100% you take Gavin McKenna. I mean, you take a look at the Maple Leafs prospect system. They have nothing. I think their top prospect right now is Ben Danford, who looks like he can be maybe a defensive defenseman in the league one day. They desperately need help everywhere. So they're in a position where they have to take the best player available. And I think it's pretty clear that Gavin McKenna will become the best player from this draft. I just think he has the best hands, the best brain, the best creativity. Ivar Stenberg might be better in the first, maybe call it 2 or 3 years, just because I think he's a little more pro ready than Gavin McKenna is. But long term, I think McKenna will be at least a point per game winger in this league. And I think he'd be a huge addition to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if they add Gavin McKenna, maybe that allows them to move out a William Nylander or a Matthew Nyes or something like that if they want help on defense. So I think it's Gavin McKenna all day long. I don't even think you really have to think about it.
I like how Robert gives me the hard pick at number 2 because this is the one that's talked about a lot. A lot of people have put out there San Jose is going to move back. How can they not move back? They have to move back. If they're going to pick a defenseman, why would you do it too? They don't trade top 5 NHL picks very often. It just doesn't happen in the history of the league if you go back and look at it. So I think some people may be big braining this one, and I'm not going to big brain it. I think the Sharks stay at 2, and they pick the guy that they want, and I think that's going to be Chase Reed. I think they're going to go defenseman. They're just going to pick their guy, move on with the day. I know that means Ivar Stenberg falls in this draft, but I think with San Jose, they've seen enough out of Chase Reed that he fills multiple holes for them, especially on the back end. They have so many elite forwards right now. That top 6 is pretty stacked. It's pretty good with Smith and Celebrini and Eklund, and I think they like those guys here. And so I think they don't big brain this at all. I think it's very simple for them. They don't muck around with trying to trade back, and hopefully he's still there for them. I think they go out and they draft themselves Chase Reed because he's exactly what that organization needs.
I'm with you. I think they'd be crazy not to take a defenseman just based off what they have right now. It's a lot of forwards, and yes, you got Sam Dickinson back there, which is great. But man, you have to add another defenseman to that group. I'm 100% there with you.
This is interesting now, Robert, at 3. This is going to be interesting. Where are you going at 3?
So if I'm the Canucks, and I'm going to assume Manny Malhotra is going to be named head coach here within the next week. Yeah. I think it's a bad idea to have a father-son on the same team in terms of father coach and a son as a player, especially a player like Malhotra who he has the potential to become a difference maker, top 6 center for the Vancouver Canucks. So head coach and an important core member of your team moving forward. I just don't think it makes sense for the Canucks to go in that direction. So at pick 3, I will go with Ivar Stenberg. The Vancouver Canucks, similar to the Leafs and discussion we just had, they need everything. They really do. I mean, their prospect pool is very light, especially up front. Their top prospect up front is Braden Coots, and then after that it really falls off. It's like Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who doesn't even look like he's could be a constant NHL player. So they just need to add the best player available, and I think at this spot clearly the best player available is Ivar Stenberg. And there's like the Swedish connection there with like the Sedins now as co-presidents. I know Daniel Sedin was out at the World Championships watching Stenberg, and he put on a show in that tournament. So I think Stenberg is the clear pick here at number 3 for the Vancouver Canucks.
I'd agree too. I think Stenberg also fits what they would like from Pettersson. If he's going to still be around, give himself a countryman, someone who can work with that skill set, play with that skill set, and I think that helps that top 6 get that much better. And it goes back to the old adage of best player available and always bet on skill, and that's what Ivar Stenberg would bring to the Canucks. Like it. That leaves this Chicago Blackhawks on the table here that could pick a couple of defensemen or take the best center in the draft by all counts. And I think that's where they go. I think bringing in a Caleb Maholcha would help solidify them down the middle. It allowed them to play Frondell on the wing, his natural position, rather than trying to force someone in the middle. It allows them maybe to put Nazar on the wing and allow them to have a deeper top 6. And with the defensemen that they have in Chicago, I think that they're good enough on the back end that picking the best center available in the draft just makes a ton of sense for Chicago, and it takes a little bit of pressure off of Connor Bedard being the guy, being the centerman to do everything. He's got a running mate to go with him, and a lot of good teams, most good teams, have a really good 1-2 punch up the middle. And so Chicago setting themselves up with Caleb Maholtra.
If they were to go down that direction, my God, that forward group is going to be good in a few years.
Right?
I think the way people are talking about the Chicago Blackhawks right now, I think is totally unfair. A lot of people are saying like, the Blackhawks haven't made any steps forward. They don't have much of a future. Look at what San Jose did this past year. They really pushed. Chicago wasn't there. I completely disagree. I mean, you take a look at the first half of the season when Connor Bedard was healthy before his injury. The Blackhawks were right there in the wild card conversation. And Bedard was on pace to have a 100-plus point season, similar to Macklin Celebrini. And had Bedard stayed healthy the whole year, I think they would have finished in a very similar spot to where San Jose finished. And you take a look at the Chicago Blackhawks prospect group. I mean, it is stacked. It is loaded. Like, this team is going to be so good in a few years here. Like they're going in the right direction, and to add a Malhotra to that group, I think would just be a home run for them. So yeah,
sure.
I like that pick. And even
Yeah.
if they take one of the defensemen too, I think would be a home run pick there. I mean, they're in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, that's a can't miss pick, and I just putting Holter in there just does a little bit more for me than maybe a Keaton Verhoff or a Carls would for them. Just if you look, people are like, well, their defense isn't that good. Look at their prospect pool, what's coming, what Leshunov can be down the road here for them. I really like that group in Chicago. That's a good Blackhawk team. Where are you headed at 5 here for the Rangers?
So I think the New York Rangers will probably go defense here. I think looking at all the players who are, remaining on the draft board, I think defense is probably the spot where they're going to go. And I'll go with Keaton Verhoff here. I think hockey, quote unquote hockey men, even though I hate that term. I think they're going to have Keaton Verhoff higher than a lot of public scouting services have him, because you look at the size, you look at the pedigree, the skating, the playmaking. The reason I think Verhoff fell off this year is because he was a 17-year-old, kid in grade 12 going to play in the NCAA a year early, and he's playing against 18 to 24-year-olds. A lot of these guys have that man strength right now. They're bigger, stronger, faster than what he faced in the WHL, and I just think it's a learning curve for a lot of these guys. We saw it with Gavin McKenna, we saw it with Tynan Lawrence, we saw it with Keaton Verhoff, but I think a lot of these kind of old school scouts are going to see the size. They're going to see the total package here with Verhoff, and I think he's going to go higher than a lot of public places have him. So the Rangers take right shot defenseman Keaton Verhoff at pick 5.
I like that, and I think he fits in what the Rangers are as well. I think he fits in exactly what they're looking for. I like that pick, Keaton Verhoff there. A lot of people are sleeping on this kid, I think, still for a lot of reasons you just said there. I'm high on Keaton Verhoff still. I would draft him higher if I had my druthers. Like if I was San Jose at 2, I still think I might lean Verhoff over Chase Reed, but I understand why people do it the other way around as well. That leaves me with pick 6. That leaves me with the discussion of, do I go forward? Do I go defenseman? This is, how do the Flames look at their list? How do they slot all of these guys? And there's a ton of names to pick from at 6, and these all the same names we've seen on social media, from Carls to Smits to Lawrence to Bjork, and even Daxton Rudolph has been in that conversation at 6. I am going down the path where I might be my favorite guy on that list, but I think he's also the guy that fits what the Flames need the most, and that's Carson Karels. I think it's hard to pass up a left side defenseman, knowing what the organization has there. And I know they also need centermen, but I really think that a Kevin Ball, Carson Karels, Zane Parekh, Hunter Prstavage is a really good start to having a really solidified back end, and one that's young and can grow together and be good together for 5, 6, 7 years. And so for me, Carson Karels is the way I go. The other guy I was thinking of there was Tynan Lawrence, but I think Carson Karels for me will win out in this conversation.
Yeah, basically all the guys you listed there, I know, just as like a Flames fan, I would be happy, honestly, with any of those guys.
Me too.
Karels would be a really good pick. Like you said, he's the left side option. The thing I like about Karels too is that from everything I've watched, from everything I've read, it seems like he's one of those defensemen who has the total package. It's not like a Zane Parekh in the sense where it's going to be pure offense, and if he doesn't produce offense, then he might not be the most effective player. Feels like Karls is the kind of guy who he can skate, he can produce offense, he can defend. He's physical. He's got all those different elements to his game where, I think he could be a really important first pairing defenseman for the next 10 to 12 years in this league. So, and he's even got a little bit of size too. So I would be pretty pumped. And I think if you're a Flames fan, I think you should be pretty excited if the draft were to go that way for them.
He also seems to be a kind of guy who wants the pressure of, right? He said he wants to play in Canada. He'd love to play in Canada. He loves Western Canada. He wants to be in those type of markets. So he's a guy who kind of thrives with the pressure and the expectations that would come from being in a Canadian market. And when you have a guy who's that confident in his game, I think it's hard not to pick that type of player. And so a nice Canadian defenseman for a Canadian team and a guy who wants to be here with all the tools that you laid out there, Robert, on ice, that's a hard package to pass up here.
Yeah, and on the left side, then you go Karls, Ball, and Kuznetsov. Long term, I think you're pretty happy with that, because I think Kevin Ball, I think he's mostly suited to be a number 2 on the left side. And I think Kuznetsov is probably best suited as a third pair guy.
Yeah.
So, rounding out that group, I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, and it's needed. And right, like, you have those offensive guys like in Perek and Brestevich. You need a guy who can play with them, and Carson Carrolls can do exactly that. You're Seattle. You're on the clock. Where are you headed there, Robert?
This is another tough one because once again they need everything, and I think at this spot at number 7 you could probably pick anywhere between 4 or 5 guys at this spot, and I think you'd walk away pretty happy. But I really believe that Seattle, they need high octane, high offensive ceiling forwards because it's been a really boring product there for the fans, and the Seattle marketplace is about to become incredibly competitive when it comes to pro sports. They got the Seahawks, who are by far the number 1 team in that market, coming off a Super Bowl. You got the Mariners, who people love. You got the University of Washington Huskies there. You're going to have the NBA come back. You got PWHL. You got the WNBA. Like, there's so much competition there, and the Sounders as well. The Sounders are very popular in Seattle. So they need to somehow convince people to spend their entertainment dollars on the Kraken. So I think you have to go high end offense, and I'm looking at Tynan Lawrence, or I'm looking at Vigil Bork, but I think I lean more Bjork here. Just what we saw in the World Championships and World Juniors, like, it's clear that he's got a very high hockey IQ. He's got lots of creativity. He's a great playmaker, and he's feisty too. Like, he's one of those smaller players like a Stankoven or Jackson Blake who never give up on plays and who are physical and aren't scared to go the dirty areas. That's the kind of player I think the Kraken desperately need right now. So for the Seattle Kraken, I would take Vigil Bork at 7th overall.
I think there was no wrong answer there for Seattle, really, because like you mentioned, they kind of need everything. Yes, they have Berkeley Catton coming. Okay, cool. But who's playing with him? Like, Matty Beniers hasn't been this elite top 6 center. He's good. They need something to go with, and I like that pick of Bjork for them. He'll add a lot to them, whether he's playing center or wing for Seattle. I think he would add a lot to that offense. And it was hard. I think it's hard to pass up a defenseman there as well for them because they don't really have a back end. But man, that Seattle team needs to make some hay, and I think Vigilborg does that quite well for them.
You make a great point too. Like, Shane Wright has not worked out at all. Matty Beniers has not worked out the way they had hoped. They have Berkeley Catton, they have Jake O'Brien, but I don't know if Catton and O'Brien are slam dunk, point per game players in the NHL. So they need to add offense, and need to add skill and creativity to that organization.
And the talk of Shane Wright maybe being traded also adds to that. Hey, let's got to get something else in here, right? So that's a good pick there by you. That leaves number 8, the Winnipeg Jets. And this fell perfectly for Winnipeg, and I think a player that fits them perfectly in Tynan Lawrence. I think he's exactly what the Winnipeg Jets have been saying in the media about what they want. They need a middle 6 center and a guy that they can play behind Mark Scheifele and be a producer. And he might not be that right away for you, but I think Tynan Lawrence fits that second-line center, potential first-line center that Winnipeg would need. And his name, you read Tynan Lawrence and you just think he fits what Winnipeg Jets are. And so I think he adds everything Winnipeg is looking for. And I think it makes just a ton of sense for them to take a center as well in this draft. So Tynan Lawrence to Winnipeg for me is pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense for Winnipeg. They need help down the middle. Scheifele's not getting any younger. They're missing the second line center. Perfetti doesn't really look like a long-term center. Adam Lowry is definitely better suited for the bottom 6. So yeah, they desperately need help down the middle of the ice. Totally agree with you there.
It's crazy that he fell to 8, and he was a guy that a lot of people were projecting to fight for that top 3, top 4 spot in the draft. So I think it's a good pick for Winnipeg. All right, you're Florida. You haven't traded this pick. You're going to add someone to the mix there. Where do you go in adding to the 2-time cups and all that good jazz and the expectations of next year being back into the cup? Where do the Panthers go with this pick if they don't trade it?
I think that they're going to go defense here. You take a look at their decor, and it is getting a little bit older between Seth Jones, Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad. Like, they're getting up there in age. They're going to need to add some younger caliber players to that group. So With that being said, I would go Jackson Rudolph here
Love it.
from the Prince Albert Raiders, and like I'm a huge Rudolph fan. I think I'm higher on him than a lot of people are. Like even if the Flames were to pick him at 6, I would not be upset by that. I think he's just really good. Big guy, I think 6'2", right shot defenseman, incredibly poised with the puck. He's when the puck's on a stick, they used to say about Scott Niedermayer, the game would just slow down. I feel kind of the same way about Rudolph. Very poised, very smart, great set of hands, great vision. He was the co-leading scorer in the WHL playoffs this year, making really high-end, impressive plays, and he's a good skater on top of that. I think Rudolph is a slam dunk top 4 defenseman for the next 15 to 17 years, and I think he'd be a really good fit in the Florida Panther organization. So yeah, Jackson Rudolph going to the Panthers.
I love that pick, and if he goes higher in the draft, I won't be surprised at all. Much like you, I'm a big fan of this guy and what he brings to the table. I think he's skating under the radar a little bit because they love the sexiness that Chase Reed brings to the lineup, right? Those kind of guys who are dynamic, or the guys that can shut guys down like a Carson Carroll's. But I think he belongs in that conversation. That bodes well for the Nashville Predators, who sit at the 10th pick. I think this is an organization who wants to get back to being competitive in the playoffs. They're not looking for this long-term rebuild. They're trying to maximize having Stamkos and O'Reilly there. And I know they tried to make moves at the deadline last year, but I don't think this is an organization that really wants to take a step back. And I think that's going to help them with how this board fell to them. I think Albert Smits, a defenseman, fits perfectly into that organization. He's a guy who's already played amongst men this last year. He's a guy who's played in a ton of different spots this last year. And he's shown quite well in most of his opportunities playing amongst these different leagues that he's been in, tournaments, the Olympics and so forth, world championships. And I think Albert Smits is the kind of guy that Nashville likes. They like these European, you remember like the Roman Yossis and stuff that have been through there. I think he fits in exactly how they play the game and what Nashville's trying to do here. So I think Albert Smits is a good fit for Nashville, and I think there's a good chance that he actually plays in the league next year based on how he's projected and how he has progressed as a draft eligible this season in men's leagues and men's tournaments around the league. So for me, pretty nice draft pick here for the Nashville Predators in Albert Smits.
I was thinking about him for Florida for the reason you just said. Like, there is the potential for him to play in the NHL next season because he played against men at the Olympics and he played against men in the Finnish league, and then he even joined the German league for a little bit this year. And then he had the World Championships with Latvia. He kind of seems like he's pro ready, and yeah, he's a big body. So I think that would be a good pick. I know, like, to bring it back to the Flames, if they were to pick Smits at 6, that would be one pick I would not be happy about because I don't think he's the kind of player that they need right now. But for a team picking at like 10th, anywhere from 10 to 15, if they got Smits, I think it would be, a really good selection for those teams.
Yeah, a team like Florida or Nashville is closer to competing or being a playoff team. I think Smits is perfectly fits there. If you're a team like Seattle or Calgary, you kind of want someone who's a couple of years down the road as you're trying to build towards something. So I agree with you there. I wouldn't hate if the Flames took Smits. I'd question why they passed up on a Carroll's or a Verhoff or any of those kind of guys for a Smits. Like, that's where I'd question it. And I really like how this board fell for these other teams. And I think both of us were smart in our picks here and just kind of use logic in our picks. And for when you have a team that's just taking best available player on their list, I think the board swings nicely for you and allows a guy like Smits to go where I think he's best suited, and that's to a team that's closer to being a playoff or in the playoffs type of organization like Nashville.
Now, was there a player?
Any more mock? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask.
Go ahead.
Do you think there's a player who we didn't select that will actually end up going in the top 10, or do you think our top 10 is pretty locked in?
Because of the position of the players we've taken, I'm not sure, but and he is a winger, but I think Ethan Belches of the Windsor Spitfire, he's a big-bodied winger. I wouldn't want to say just like Porter Martone, but he has that similar effect on the game. Can score, can skate. He's a bigger body. He's a nice player to have. But being a winger, I wonder if teams shy away from him in the top 10, but I could see him being a guy that, say, a Winnipeg Jets select, or maybe even the Nashville Predators should select at 10, that type of player. But he'd be one name I would look out for. Other than that, I'm not sure anyone else would really pop off the page. Maybe a Wyatt Cullen might get close, but other than that, I'm not sure if anyone else would fit in that range. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Wyatt Cullen is being slept on. Like, from everything I've watched, he is arguably, a top 3 in terms of most dynamic player in this draft. He's just an incredible skater. He's got the high end skill set. I think that that he's a really interesting player that could potentially get into the top 10. Yeah. Now, I don't think this player is going to get into the top 10, but I think people are sleeping on him a little bit, and it's Ryan Lynn out of the Vancouver Giants. He's a smaller, undersized defenseman, but I think we're seeing the success of guys like Lane Hudson, Cole Hudson, Quinn Hughes, those types of players, and I wonder if teams are going to be more open-minded to taking a player like that. But you watch some of the highlights from Ryan Lynn, and he literally looks like a Lane Hudson type of player with the way he's been playing in the WHL. Just incredibly dynamic, amazing skater, great on the power play, great at walking the blue line, amazing edge work. I don't know if he could get to the Lane Hudson level, because Hudson's a remarkable hockey player, but I think he could get, damn near close to that. And yeah, with just people seeing the success of those smaller D-men these days, I wonder if a team might step up and take a swing on a guy like Ryan Lynn.
I like that name too. I've seen a few mock drafts. It is mock draft season, where they've had Ryan Lynn to the Islanders at 13. And I'm like, that seems perfect for him, behind a Matthew Schaefer, an opportunity to run that second power play and be able to fill a role there. If he lives up to his projection, I think that's a great name. I'm not sure if he's top 10 worthy, but I really, in that mid-teen area, that 13 to the Islanders, maybe 14 to the Columbus Blue Jackets, that type of player. Or even St. Louis at 15, who have multiple first-round draft picks. That definitely be a kind of guy that you could be looking at. I like that name there for you. Last mock, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. I didn't really talk to you beforehand about doing this mock draft last time. Flames are going to get pick 31 or 30, depending how Vegas finishes in the Stanley Cup final. At 30 or 31, let's mock a player there. Do you have a favorite at the end of the first round that you'd love for the Flames to pick that's not one of the Ruck brothers?
That's not one of the Ruck brothers. You just took it away from me.
I'm taking it off the table. Let's pick the Rucks are a given. Everyone wants the given. Let's pick another. I'll go first because I have a name and I talked about him earlier in the podcast. I don't think he's going to fall this far, but if Jack Hextall from the Youngstown of the USHL is available, he's the kind of player that I would love for the Flames to select. He might be a bit of a project for a couple of seasons as he progresses in his development, but he's a centerman. He can win draws. He's really good on the power play. He can score points. He's a two-way guy. He can play a lot of different ways for you, and I think he fit in perfectly with what the Flames would be looking for at the end of the first round. So my guy would be Jack Hextall. Did I buy enough time?
Oh yeah. No, I had a name ready to go.
Perfect.
If it wasn't the Rucks, but I would potentially look at a guy like Xavier Villeneuve out of the queue. Basically, everything I just said about Ryan Lynn could be tied to Villeneuve. So 5'11", so like he's not the biggest guy, but once again he's got that dynamic skill set that you watch the NHL today, and it's becoming more and more clear that moving the puck as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can out of your zone with speed, to transition up the ice is becoming one of the most important parts of the game. So I think if the Flames are able to add another high skill puck moving defenseman to their group, I think would make a lot of sense. And, if they do take a Carson Karls or they do take a defenseman at 6 overall, then maybe you don't go in this direction. But if they take like a Bjork at number 6, I think somebody like a Xavier Villeneuve would be somebody that I think would make a lot of sense for this team.
I like that name. I like that name a lot. I wasn't even thinking of him that far down. I wonder if he gets plucked in again in that early 20s, late teens area. That's a great name and a great breakdown of what he brings to the table. That's a dynamic player as well. Could you imagine the Flames coming away with a couple of defensemen and a center out of this draft in that first round? That'd be incredible.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
we've done a lot of mocking here, Robert, and I am excited to see the fan reaction to this podcast and who they would take at 6, who they would trade, how they would trade, and what they would like the Flames to do. So feel free to reach out to Robert or I with your mock trades, your mock drafts, and let us know where we went wrong in your eyes or where we went right in your eyes. Hopefully more right than wrong, because we're too smart for this sometimes, Robert, and I agree with that. Anything else you want to talk about on the podcast today? If not, good sir, what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca? How busy are you guys getting here as draft is closing in?
Yeah, super busy. So we're going to start releasing a whole bunch of draft content. Started over the weekend, looking back on all the Flames draft classes from the last 25 years. And I posted the first one. It was the 2000 draft when they picked Brent Cron with the 9th overall pick. And I was looking at the comments and people were like, oh god, like the Flames are just the worst drafting team. I know the In the Dome guys were like, let's not look back on their draft classes, please. So yeah, the fan reaction has been hilarious to some of these, but just to warn everybody, looking back on all these draft classes, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So you have lots to look forward to there. But yeah, lots of draft content coming your way at Flames Nation.
Especially in the early 2000s, that's been some really, really awesome drafts.
Like 2000 to like 2000, we'll call it like 10. 2011, just a mess. Like, just so bad. Not to sound like a jerk, but you look back on some of these Flames drafts and you think to yourself, you're like, how does Todd Button still have his job?
I was just gonna go there, and I'm like, I want to be as nice as possible in saying it, but I laugh at his draft rankings every year because I'm like, I know how you draft, Craig, and let's just say no. But we'll put it that way. Hey, all the power to him. He's made a career out of it, and he's been being paid to mock every year. So all the power to him.
I'm talking Todd, like the Flames head of amateur scouting.
Oh, both of them. Like you talking about his brother too. Like, how do they continually have a job here? Because I didn't like when he was general manager Craig. I don't think he was good. And then Todd as the head scout now, he continues to get work. But I think a lot of the work lately here has been because Craig Conroy's been involved, and he has big voice in the room, and when you have a big voice like that in the room, he helps continue to do it. So nonetheless, the draft just a few weeks away here. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Stanley Cup final begins tonight. Robert, before we sign off here, who's your cup final? Who's your prediction to win?
Yeah, I'll go Carolina. I think it's their year. They've been pushing for so long. Vegas, obviously an incredible hockey team. I wonder if they're going to be able to keep up, because Carolina is fast and ferocious. And, when I think of Vegas, I don't think of like the fastest team in the world. So I wonder if that speed and tenacity is in defensive play is going to be the difference in this series. So yeah, I'll go Carolina in 6.
Who gets the better goaltending? Does Anderson continue his hot streak, or can Carter Hart have 4 to 7 games of good goaltending like he did in Colorado, the Colorado series? I'm going to go Carolina as well. I'm going to do it in 7 just because I want the 7 games. That's the purely selfish part of it. I just like how Brind'Amour has his team rolling right now, and the structure that no one's been able to break down through 3 rounds. Spare me who they've played. I don't care. They've been able to do it, and they've been able to do it quite quickly in all 3 rounds. It's a rested group versus a team that went through a couple of battles in Vegas. So I wonder if fatigue becomes a factor in any of these games. And the way that Carolina is playing right now is they haven't been able to be broken down by anybody, and it's been 3 rounds. And so credit to them for getting that far. So give me Rod the Bod, Stanley Cup champion, as a coach would be awesome to watch as well. And thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast rotations. Enjoy the final, enjoy the mock draft season. We'll have more for you next week here on the Red Mile Rundown.